You just have to click on slideshow.
Yeah.
Here you are.
All right. So, hello everyone. Welcome to Nolex. So today we are going to talk about SQL Cmd, which is a command line tool for SQL Server. And as I was telling Johnny that like this is not limited to DevOps. So even if you are a developer, then you might need this someday, right? Because like this is a way you can use the SQL Server and automate it, even if you do not know some of the SQL queries, right? So it's like a very good way to handle the SQL servers. So before we begin, let's look at the Nolex etiquettes. So always be punctual, join 5 minutes before, and after the session, always leave a constructive feedback and keep your mobile phones and devices on silent mode so that we do not face any disturbance, and keep yourself muted unless you have a question, then please unmute and ask. So our agenda will be we will see what is SQL CMD and why do we need it and how we can use it, and with a demo. So before I even begin, let me show you how what's the normal way. So like let's say I have a SQL server on Windows, right? So if I want to do something with it, right? So what's the manual way? The manual way is like you will probably connect to that database instance. So in this case, I have a Windows server. So I will RDB. If you have a Linux machine, then you will probably do SSH. So let me connect, right? So your SQL server will probably have this SQL Server Management Studio, right? So this is how it usually looks like, right? So on the left you have the databases. So if I expand this, you will see that I have these many databases like TS and TS audit, TS CM. And if I want to do something with it, you can do right click and add a new query and do properties and policies. And here you also have a query tool. So if you open it, you can type queries here. For example, star. Yeah. So if I print just all the tables, you will see that these are the tables I have here. And this is just standard SQL, right? Just standard SQL queries which I just executed. But this way is not a good way, right? Because this is manual, right? So let's say you have 10 SQL servers, then you will have to manually log into each one of them with the user ID passwords. Then you will manipulate the databases, right? So this is not the most efficient way to do this, to manage your databases. So what's the next best thing? The next best thing we have is to have a SQL client. For example, you can have something like this, like Azure Data Studio, or you can use any SQL client, right? But here also the here you will not have to manually log in into the server. So but you can log in using this, right? If you will go to connect, you will connect to this server, and you will do the connection. And once it is connected, once it is connected, then here also it will show you all the databases we were having, right? And if you do this, and if you run this command, again printing the tables, it will again show you the tables which I have in the database, right? But still this is like a manual, slightly better than the last one, but still manual. So the problem here is that, like, what if you have multiple servers, right? Or what if you want to build some sort of automation to like play with your databases on the go on CI or something else, right? So what will you do? So for that, SQL Server has a command line tool called SQL Cmd. Okay, so it's a simple command line utility that allows you to automate the task related to your SQL Server. For example, you can write a script, right, which will log into a specific SQL Server, and it will execute your SQL scripts and do the changes, right? So as I said, it greatly reduces the time it takes to log into different servers, and you can also automate tasks using CI, right? So let's say this is your CI, right? So let's say before your deployment or before your unit testing, you need to do some changes to the database server, right? So you can easily plug in this SQL CMD script in any of the steps, and you can execute that to do those changes, right? So I will show you like how to use it, but I hope you got the idea of why we are using it or why is it important. Now, before if anyone ever have any questions that you can ask. Okay, then how to use it now? Since it's a command line utility, then you can basically install it on both like Windows as well as Linux. Like it doesn't matter, as long as you have a SQL server running somewhere, you can use it from any host, right? In my case, I'm using from Windows, as I showed you. So on Windows, you will need like the Microsoft ODBC driver 17, and then you will install these Microsoft command line utilities 15 for SQL Server, and it will install the SQL CMD automatically, right? And it is available for both 32-bit and 64-bit. Similarly, on Linux, the installation is also standard, right? You will get the key, you will add the repo, and then you will simply update and install by MS SQL tools, and it will do the installation. And and once you have it installed, and if you open command prompt or any terminal, and if you do uh, SQL CMD, you will see that it will not show you that command not found, right? It will actually register this, and right now it will show me that no connection is there because I have not provided any parameters, right? But I have it installed. Similarly, you can install it. So after this, like, let me show you how we can actually use this, right? So the same thing I showed you manually, this time we will do it using this tool, right? So the very simple basic thing you can do is like SQL CMD, right? Then you can do option S. It stands for server name. So the server name in my case is this on 0 pdb.els1.cloud.in, right? So you have to put your SQL Server database link here, right? It can be anything, and then you will do -u for user for the username, -p for the password, right? And then you can use any option, right? For in my case, I will do -q. Q stands for query, right? Q stands for command line query. So I can pass any query here, right? So let's pass the same query. Let's pass select star from sys.tables, right? And if I run this, yep, you will see that I got the same output, right? It's a bit ugly because I'm running it in command prompt, but if you look closely, it has the same output, right? It gave you those 5 rows, right, which we were getting when we did it manually, right? So basically what it did is it connected to that SQL server, and then it executed this query for you, right? And you got the data. right? So as you can see, it is very easy. I didn't log in anywhere manually. I just run like a one liner, and it was there, it was done. Similarly, if you want to insert something, or if you want to manipulate something inside your database server, you can just use some other query, right? And similarly, you have all these options, right? If you go to this official page of SQL Cmd utility and you scroll down, you will see like here there are a lot of options, right? Like if you want to trust the certificate, -c for that, right? Because usually if you on your server you will have some like certificate, right? Then it will automatically accept that. And if you want to execute your query on a specific database, then you can like do this, like provide the db name, right? If you want to supply a file sql script, then you can do -i. So let me show you this. So this time I just wrote this query, right? So let's do one thing, right? Let's, what if you have some like big sql script, right? So let's do this. I have created this file listtables.sql, and if we open this, you will see that here I have written the same command, right? So the extension is .sql because it's a SQL script, right? So if I want to now execute this, I will this so for this I will use -i for the input file, and I will provide the file like what's the name. Let me see what the name is. List tables. Okay, I'm not in the right directory. Now I will provide this file using -i, and if I hit enter, you will see that it will execute the same exact thing, but this time with a file. Okay, so this is very useful because let's say you have a big SQL script, right? And then you can simply like put all those SQL scripts inside this SQL script, right? All those commands like insert statements, drop statements. If you want to do backup, restore anything, or do some transactions, you can put them inside the SQL script and execute this directly. Okay, so if I show you some examples, right? Like I had this script which I was using to restore the database. So as you can see, I have this, right? This script. So this is basically making sure that I have all the empty databases. So I'm just like checking if this database is null or not, and if it is null, I will simply drop it, right? Similarly I will do for every database. So as you can see, even if I don't know any, like even if I don't know how to handle a SQL server, like I was able to drop the databases like and bring them in a clean state using this SQL script without even like manually logging there and seeing what's going on, right? Similarly you can have any like different sorts of SQL scripts. For example, let me show you like how powerful it is. So if I open this, by the way, this is TeamCity CI tool, right? So I have a planned Nolex on this one as well, where I will tell you like how to use this TeamCity. But for now, right? So here, as you can see, I am using many SQL scripts, right? Similarly, I have this SQL script here, which is doing basically some changes to the software, to the database, and adding some things to it, right? Like this URL, I'm adding this URL to the required field in the database, right? And if I show you one more thing, mm, yep. So this is the SQL which restores the database, right? So as you can see, here it is, I'm using the same query for the restore. And all of these are like standard SQL queries, right? So it is doing restore database name from this location. So I have this restore file on D drive. So it will pick that restore file, this backup file, and it will restore it to my database server, right? So it is very powerful because you can like put queries here, right? So if even if you want to do like backup restore, you can do it, right? And as you can see here, I'm also using like uh, I'm also setting it offline, right? So that I can do the uh, restore, and after the restore is done, from here I am again setting this database to online, right? So it is very powerful tool, right? Similarly, you have a lot of options here, right? So hyphen p using password, right? I just did that. And so we were using hyphen q, so it will like execute the query and exit. If you don't want to exit and you want to keep the connection open, then you can do like small q, right? So it will execute the query and keep the connection open. Second, you also have hyphen t for query timeout. So for example, if some of your query is taking like a lot of time, right, and you want to like limit it so that you do not want the query to like exceed 30 seconds or 1 minute, then you can use this timeout. And I was using this login id as well, right, for the user id hyphen u, right? Similarly, there are a lot of use cases where you can use this all these options, right? You can even like set a new password and a lot of all other options. So so if you have any questions, you can ask me related to this. Yep. And by the way, like as you can see, this is a CI tool, right? So I'm basically running these scripts from the CI, right? So I just created these SQL scripts which I wanted to run, and then I'm simply like running this SQL script. So if I open this step, you will see, right, I'm using the SQL Cmd itself. So as you can see, SQL Cmd, server name, user ID, password, and I'm just providing these files using hyphen I. So one to create the database, one to restore from the backup. Third one is to add everyone to the SQL script, the roles, and then one more thing I'm using like doing some changes to the gadget, right? So it depends what you want to do, but you got the idea, right? If you have the SQL, even if you don't have the SQL knowledge, right, even if you don't know how to write the SQL scripts, you can always get these from the database engineer and just run them on the fly using the SQL CMD or from your CI, right? And you don't even need to know like what it's doing in the background. So it acts like a really good abstraction as well. Right, and it is like it can be used especially when in case of your CI where you like not already creating an database connection. For example, if you don't have any Java code or any code here which is connecting to the database, and then you want to do some ad hoc changes to the database, which I was explaining like before the unit testing or before the deployment, you want to do some changes, then you can run them as a ad hoc command. Like simply just run this from your command line, and it will do the changes before these steps. So you have a lot of flexibility here, right? You do not have to like install SQL Server or do like anything in your inside your code. You do not have to make any connections, right? You just have to provide the SQL Server user ID password, and it will do the SQL task for you, right? So as you can see, like it makes the work very easy and flexible for you. So if you have any questions till now, you can ask me. Okay. Now I will tell you how you can do what I did, right? So for this, to practice this, what you can do is you can go to AWS or GCP, right? And you can just create a normal server, any free server, like right, like Windows, Linux, anything, doesn't matter. And then you can install SQL Server on it, right? So you will have a SQL Server running right somewhere, and then simply from your local terminal, from your local machine, what you can do is you can install SQL Cmd, right? Simply install it, and then you can run SQL commands on your SQL Server which you created on AWS or GCP, right? So and you can practice it, and you will see that it's very good, right? You can like execute and you can create your own queries, right? And you can play with it. So that was it for today's session. If you have any questions, you can ask me, and I hope you like the session and you gained some information from it.
So thanks, Mohit, for this wonderful session. I would request if there's any question anybody has, it's the right time, right moment to shoot your questions. Anybody? Rahul Soni, do you have any questions?
No, Dhoni.
Vanya, any questions?
Not now, John.
All right, wonderful. So here we are. Thank you so much, Mohit, for this wonderful session. I'm sure we all have collated a new set of learning today. And remember one thing, everyone, learning itself is not the completion of the journey. Learning completes when we translate that learning into action. And day in, day out in our lives, whatever we go through, whatever we see, look at, and we go through, all even that includes our levels of learning as well. It is very important to execute that learning into action, because once we do that, the memory of that learning is that gets deeply ingrained in our minds, and we become an expert in that particular learning framework. So I would insist, urge, and request every one of you to try to find out ways to execute this learning into action. And with this, thank you so much, everyone, for coming in. Have a good and great, and of course, a very healthy day ahead. We see each other in the next session, which is about to commence after 5-7 minutes. So thanks, everyone, and do not forget to share the feedback, your learning experience for this session. Thanks, and have a good day.
Yeah, thanks, Johnny. Thanks, Mohit, for this wonderful session.
Thanks, Vishan.
Good session, Mohit. Thank you.